Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a viral-style confession that tackles head-on the one digital safety talk literally every parent is absolutely terrified to have. You know the one, that heavy, uncomfortable conversation about what's actually happening on their screens when we aren't looking. So let's just get right into it, because the way this parent frames their experience, it's a total game changer. It's going to completely shift how you approach digital safety in your own home. We're starting right out of the gate with this incredibly vulnerable hook. The parent wrote, "There's a conversation I put off for almost a year." Man, just think about the weight of that. They go on to explain that they didn't put it off out of ignorance, right? Like they knew they needed to have the talk. They were just totally paralyzed. They wrote, "I had no idea how." And honestly, how do you discuss the darkest corners of the internet without just terrifying your kids or making them feel like they're being accused of something? The huge fear here is that if you come in too hot, they're just going to shut down completely before you even finish your sentence. It's such a profound admission. How many of us are sitting on these absolutely crucial conversations, just watching the clock tick, simply because we're terrified of saying the wrong thing?
Section 1. The avoided conversation.
Section 2. The terrifying reality. Now, this brings us to what exactly they were so afraid to talk about in the first place. Let's think about the sheer scale of the issue. Data reveals that nearly 1 in 4 teenagers, so 25%, have actually sent an explicit image. But it's the second half of that statistic that really causes that parental paralysis. Of those teens who sent an image, half of them had it shared without their consent. I mean, let that sink in for a second. We're talking about a massive, devastating breach of trust happening to teenagers on a daily basis. How do you even begin to talk to your kid about a landscape that's just so fraught with that level of betrayal? And it gets worse. Because the threat doesn't just stop at peer-to-peer sharing among classmates. We also have to face the rising, and frankly terrifying, danger of sextortion. This is a very real practice where strangers completely misrepresent themselves online to target kids. They gain their trust, they get their hands on compromising material, and then they threaten to blast it everywhere unless their demands are met. It is extortion, plain and simple, and it's playing out right on the very devices our kids are using to do their homework and text their friends. Which brings us to an absolutely terrifying new frontier: artificial intelligence. Imagine a parent agonizing over how to explain that AI can now literally manufacture incredibly realistic, compromising images of their child. And the scariest part, that child doesn't ever have to take a single inappropriate photo for this to happen. No actual compromising photos are required for exploitation anymore. The rules of the game have completely changed here. Innocence is just no longer a shield against these manufactured threats. Section 3. The wake-up call. So how did this parent finally break the silence? Well, it happened on a random quiet evening when their kid casually mentioned a deeply serious situation involving a girl at their school. And that led to this stark, very sobering realization: they already know this world exists. While the parent had been agonizing for a year over how to introduce the topic, their kid was already navigating it. The kids are already out there, guys. They're dealing with the fallout of explicit images and online drama every single day. And the parent had this heartbreaking realization: I wasn't in the room with them. By avoiding the talk, they hadn't protected their kid from the reality at all. Actually, scratch that. They had just ensured the child was facing it entirely alone. Section 4. The awkward talk. That wake-up call was the catalyst to finally sit down and just do it. And they started beautifully by saying, "This is not about not trusting you, it's about me loving you." But let's be real here. Even with that perfect framing, it was not a flawless conversation. First, you just have to embrace the uncomfortable feelings. You're going to sweat, they're going to cringe, it's totally fine. Second, relieve the tension by just laughing at the awkward bits together. It normalizes the shared awkwardness of parenting and growing up. It proves that this talk doesn't have to be some cinematic perfect speech to be highly effective. The connection actually comes from the willingness to be messy and awkward together. And that leads right into step 3, which is setting the absolute ground rule. Section 5. Becoming the first calm. Because ultimately, this isn't about giving a lecture, it's about positioning yourself as the ultimate safe harbor. And the core research finding here is actually incredibly liberating for parents. On one side, what doesn't matter is whether your child navigates the digital world perfectly. Perfection is a myth. They're absolutely going to make mistakes. But on the other side, what does matter is whether they know without a shadow of a doubt that they can come to you when that mistake happens. The goal of the conversation isn't digital perfection. It's establishing open lines of communication so they know they are completely supported when things inevitably go sideways. And that brings us to the most powerful promise a parent could ever make. This is exactly what they told their child at the end of that awkward talk. I am the first call, not the last, and I will not make it worse. Wow. This non-judgmental promise is the exact actionable takeaway for every single person listening to this explainer right now. I will not make it worse is the ultimate guarantee of safety. It means I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to immediately confiscate your phone and ground you for life. I am just going to help you fix it.
Look, the reality is, if you've been putting off this hard conversation, it's completely understandable. The stakes feel impossibly high. But as we've seen today, our kids are already out there in the digital wild. They're already seeing things and facing situations we couldn't have even imagined at their age. So I want to leave you with this question to really ponder. When they inevitably encounter the dark sides of the internet, whose voice will be in their head?